You won't believe this, but yes, it's actually possible to buy a house in America for around $5,000. And no, this isn't a Craigslist scam or some abandoned shack from 1953. We're talking real towns with real people where entire homes cost less than a used Honda Civic. Sounds insane, right? But here's the twist. These places aren't just cheap, they come with baggage. Everything from creepy folklore and haunted railroad tunnels to Wall Street quietly buying up whole zip codes. Some of these towns are making a quiet comeback, while others feel like they're still cursed. And in one spot, they're practically giving land away if you're brave enough to live with what's buried underneath. And trust me, one of these towns might hand you not just a property deed, but a ghost, or worse, a full-blown tourist trap. This isn't surface-level Zillow scrolling. This is the dark web of American real estate, and it's going to blow your mind. So stick around, because what comes next will make you question everything you thought you knew about the housing market. Number 20. Detroit, Michigan. You can literally buy a house in Detroit for less than a year of Starbucks, and this isn't Monopoly. This is real Detroit. Deed in hand. Motor City, the place that once put the entire world on wheels before driving headfirst into an economic collapse. Once a booming industrial giant, today it's home to some of the cheapest real estate in the country. And while it feels like a scam, it's not. People still live here, and some even thrive. The city has grit, guts, raw energy, and a startup culture rising from the ashes like a hipster phoenix. Median home prices in certain neighborhoods sit under $10,000. Vacancy rates climb above 20%, leaving entire blocks eerily quiet and empty. Even so, rents are rising. Detroit's overall cost of living is 9% below the national average, but higher utilities and the need for security systems balance it out.
Violent crime sits at nearly 2,000 cases per 100,000 residents, 5 times the U.S. average. But there's momentum, too. Ford has returned, small businesses are opening, and new tech hubs are testing the waters. As one local said on Reddit, Detroit's not scary, it's just honest. You know your day's off to a good start if your car's still there in the morning. Buying cheap in Detroit is the easy part. Living here is the challenge. You could end up a community hero, or you could wake up to find your mailbox missing. The infrastructure is its own adventure. Detroit doesn't just have potholes, it has craters. One was so big it swallowed a Prius. Some residents even fill them with soil and plant tomatoes. That's urban farming, Detroit style. What most people don't realize is that the city doesn't want pity. It demands hustle. Moving here isn't just about snagging a bargain home. It's about joining a scrappy urban experiment that mixes chaos, resilience, and possibility. And if Detroit sounds wild, the next city takes weirdness and turns it into a sport. Number 19. Flint, Michigan. Flint is one of those rare places where the car in the driveway often costs more than the house it's parked at, sometimes way more. This is Flint, the one-time powerhouse of General Motors, birthplace of legendary labor strikes, and, yes, the city that became infamous for the water crisis that made headlines worldwide. Flint has been battered, bruised, and dragged through every storm a city can face, but it's still here, standing, stubborn as ever. Beyond the headlines, though, there's another story. Some of the cheapest real estate in America. And cheap here doesn't mean shed in the backyard cheap. We're talking whole houses. Sits at around $45,000. That's not a typo. That's an actual roof-over-your-head house. The cost of living hovers about 23% below the national average, and the average rent lands around $800, sometimes lower if you're not picky. But here's the trade-off. Flint's violent crime rate is nearly 4 times the U.S. average. Unemployment has been a chronic problem, though auto manufacturing is slowly finding its footing again. A Redditor summed it up best. Living in Flint is like playing SimCity on hard mode, with random disasters always switched on. Housing is dirt cheap, but peace of mind? That'll cost extra. Life here isn't just crime stats and headlines, though. Flint has its own flavor. Fiercely loyal to its coney dogs, and absolutely unhinged when it comes to fireworks.
A random Tuesday in July can sound like a battlefield, and by the 4th, just forget about sleep altogether. Fireworks, lawn chairs, and near misses with bottle rockets aren't a pastime. They're a local sport. And if you think Flint's chaos is intense, the next city takes things a step further, offering free land, but with neighbors you might not actually want. Number 18. Weirton, West Virginia. You can actually buy a house in Weirton, West Virginia for less than a semester of college tuition. Yeah, that's real. 3 bedrooms, a yard, and the kind of space city folks can only dream about. All cheaper than what someone in New York drops on rent in a single month. Weirton sits right on the Ohio River, close enough to Pittsburgh to borrow its skyline glow, but with way more pickup trucks than Ubers.
Walking around, it feels like you stepped onto the set of a retro postcard. Old diners serving pie like it's a food group, neighbors leaning over fences to talk football, and streets where time seems stuck somewhere between 1965 and who still uses a landline? The average home price? About $112,000. That's less than the down payment on a starter home in most big cities. But here's the catch. The steel industry that once kept Weirton booming packed up decades ago, and the town's been trying to figure out what's next ever since. Jobs are limited, young people often move out, and a lot of the folks left are retirees. Crime isn't much of a problem, but finding a job that pays more than modest wages is. One local summed it up online with, "Weirton is safe, affordable, and boring." In that exact order. So what's life here really like? Quiet streets, low bills, and the kind of peace you don't get in a major city. But don't expect trendy coffee shops, high-speed internet, or nightlife that goes past 9 p.m. Your Friday night entertainment might be a Sheets run, or catching up on the town gossip at the bowling alley. Picture this. You walk outside, hear cicadas buzzing, smell someone's charcoal grill firing up, and wave to a neighbor who's been sitting in the same lawn chair since the Reagan era. It's calm, it's cheap, and it's slow. But if you're looking for hustle, Weirton might feel more like hitting pause. Number 17. Decatur, Illinois. Decatur is one of those towns where a 3-bedroom house costs less than a used car, and you could still have enough left over to stock up on a year's supply of frozen pizzas. Welcome to Decatur. Population around 68,000, surrounded by cornfields that seem to stretch to infinity, and obsessed, seriously obsessed, with soybeans. This place is nicknamed the soybean capital of the world. There are more processing plants here than Starbucks cups in LA. Median home price? Around 93 grand. Cost of living? 26% below the national average. Rent for a 2-bedroom hovers under $800 a month, if laminate floors and the occasional industrial whiff aren't a deal breaker. Decatur is calm, cheap, and charming, but the quiet can get almost suspicious. The job market leans heavily into manufacturing and agriculture, which works if you enjoy tractors as roommates, but tech grads and digital nomads might want to pack a lunch. Crime is higher than the national average, so locking doors is basically a hobby. The air smells faintly of corn syrup from ADM, and if that doesn't bother you, the mortgage will make you smile. Friday nights? If you're under 40, chances are you'll be hanging out with retirees at the local VFW, sipping something suspiciously warm from a thermos. Driving here is its own adventure. Stop signs are treated like polite suggestions, and people might roll through a 4-way with coffee in one hand, a chicken biscuit in the other, like they're auditioning for a farm-to-table NASCAR league. Weather swings between swamp-level humidity and winds so strong that garbage cans spontaneously relocate to the next county. Number 16. Mission, Texas. Mission is one of those rare towns where a house can be snagged for under $100,000, and there's still cash left over for a lifetime supply of sunscreen and bug spray, because you'll need both. Welcome to the Rio Grande Valley, where the sun shines like it has a personal vendetta, palm trees sway like they're judging your life choices, and the nightlife politely clocks out at 10 p.m. Population hovers around 85,000, a mix of retirees, remote workers, and anyone who thinks sweating profusely is an acceptable morning routine.
Median home price sits around $98,000. Rent under $750 gets you a two-bedroom with AC, essential unless spontaneous sauna sessions are your thing. Cost of living is 24% below the national average, which is nice, because heat stroke insurance isn't a thing. Yet, Mission's charm comes with its quirks. Nearly 200 days of sunshine a year, summers hitting triple digits, and shadows that evaporate before you can blink. Jobs mostly revolve around agriculture, healthcare, and seasonal retail. Tech hubs haven't quite made it past idea stage in a garage. Crime is below the national average, but border town headlines make it sound like every taco truck comes with a side of drama. Locals describe living here as starring in a salsa commercial while wearing a hoodie in a sauna. Affordable houses, warm people, but also mosquitoes that could carry off a chihuahua, and winter that shows up about once every other year. Nightlife is limited, Dodge Chargers make occasional dramatic appearances, and coffee past 4 p.m. is a lukewarm gas station concoction that tastes like sadness with a hint of regret. Number 15 on our list, Eagle Pass, Texas. Believe it or not, you can grab a house here for under $90,000 and literally watch Mexico from your porch. No, seriously. Step outside and there it is. Eagle Pass feels like a Texas fever dream. Ranch-style homes baking in triple-digit heat, grocery stores with more salsa options than you thought existed, and neighbors who actually wave when you walk by. Life moves slowly. The culture is a colorful mix of Texan pride and Mexican heritage, and the median home price hovers around $89,000. Rent for a two-bedroom? $650 to $750, assuming you don't mind the occasional mariachi concert next door. Cost of living sits about 23% below the national average, and the town's population is a surprisingly solid 30,000 plus, complete with a Walmart supercenter and 3 Whataburgers to prove Texas really does love its fast food. But don't let the cheap housing fool you. Eagle Pass sits right on the U.S.-Mexico border, which means it pops up in every cable news panic montage since 2016. Despite the headlines, crime is way lower than you'd expect, even lower than Austin, and far safer than cities like St. Louis or Baltimore. A 2023 report showed Eagle Pass is safer than 60% of U.S. cities of its size. As one local put it, everyone thinks we're in danger. The only real threat is forgetting your sunscreen. Here, you get heat, border culture, dirt-cheap homes, and a lot of puzzled relatives asking if you just joined the cast of a post-apocalyptic Netflix show. Number 14. McAllen, Texas. One of the cheapest cities in the U.S. to live in, and somehow also one of the most misunderstood. Imagine if a Costco moved to the border, learned to dance to mariachi, and decided to throw in palm trees and taco trucks for good measure. That's McAllen. A border town with real estate so cheap it makes your mortgage sob quietly in the corner. The vibe? Think Florida without the retirees, California without the insane prices, and Arizona, but with actual culture. McAllen sits right on the U.S.-Mexico border. It's hot, it's humid, and it's quietly become a hidden gem for people who want to stretch a paycheck without turning into a full-time bunker dweller. Median home price? Around $24,000. Yes, $24,000. For a city with an international airport, multiple Target stores, and taco trucks that could probably feed an army. Rent averages around $850 a month. The cost of living is 20% below the national average, and unemployment sits low, at about 4%, thanks to logistics, healthcare, and cross-border commerce. Oh, and property taxes? Some of the lowest in Texas. Somehow, McAllen managed to dodge that everything's bigger in Texas memo. But here's where it gets spicy. McAllen is smack in the middle of border debates, immigration headlines, and cultural crossroads that feel less like small-town America and more like a telenovela with air conditioning. Reddit users have described it perfectly. McAllen is where you can buy a house, get a dozen tacos for $6, and accidentally attend a quinceañera in the same afternoon. Sounds cheap and easy, except summer here doesn't negotiate. Hot is an understatement. Sidewalks fry eggs faster than any breakfast pan, and mosquitoes are so organized they could form a union and demand benefits. Yet somehow, McAllen manages to be eco-friendly, with one of the lowest carbon footprints per capita in Texas. Go figure. And unlike Detroit, your potholes won't devour your car. They just slow dance with your suspension like they're auditioning for a salsa competition. McAllen is a city where cheap housing meets 100-degree weather, political chaos, and taco trucks on every corner. Your wallet stays happy, your sweat glands work overtime, and your summer tan reaches expert level.
Number 13. Kansas City, Missouri. Houses under $50,000, a crime rate that keeps your adrenaline up while you calculate your mortgage, and a city that somehow balances barbecue, jazz, fountains, football, and shockingly cheap real estate. Forget the glossy brochure version. The real Kansas City is east of Truce Avenue, where homes cost less than some people pay in rent in San Francisco. Streetlights have attitude, and the occasional raccoon patrols your backyard like a small mafia. Median home prices in certain zip codes hover around $43,000. Cost of living is about 21% below the national average, and rent is often under $800 a month. Violent crime is high, unemployment is above average, and infrastructure, well, let's just say your tires get more exercise than your legs. Despite this, small developers and investors are quietly buying up blocks, opening art spaces, food co-ops, and creating little pockets of renaissance. Affordable homes here come with a story. Buying isn't just about square footage. You inherit decades of patchwork plumbing, neighbors with eccentric hobbies, and occasional late-night noises that sound like a jazz quartet fighting a lawnmower. Some residents accidentally become landlords. Others attempt house flips and end up flipping out. Parking in KC is a full-contact sport. Curbs are optional, lines purely decorative, and pickup trucks park sideways like they're auditioning for a low-budget Fast and Furious. Life in a quiet KC neighborhood starts with tree-lined streets, faint jazz riffs in the distance, and a mortgage lower than your phone bill. 3 blocks over, chaos lives side by side with charm. Sirens, aggressive squirrels, lawn gnomes in tactical formations. KC is beauty and chaos coexisting like peanut butter with sriracha. Cheap housing, sketchy plumbing, barbecue on every corner, and raccoons with attitude make it a city full of surprises. Your mortgage may be tiny, but life here comes with a free upgrade to expect the unexpected. Number 12. Warren, Michigan. A place where you can buy a house for less than a year's rent in Brooklyn. But maybe don't ask why half the houses on the block look like they survived a demolition derby. Warren is Michigan's 3rd largest city, but don't expect big city lights or fancy nightlife. It's a blue-collar, no-frills suburb just north of Detroit. Picture humming auto plants, strip malls stretching forever, and sidewalks that disappear into patches of grass like they gave up halfway. Median home price? Around $99,000. Rent for a 2-bedroom? $850 to $950. Cost of living sits about 20% below the national average. And if you've ever worked in manufacturing, Warren might feel like sacred ground. GM's Tech Center, defense contractors, and more now hiring signs than stoplights. Here's the twist.
Warren has one foot in normal suburbia and the other planted firmly in post-industrial reality. Violent crime is roughly 47% higher than the national average. Property crime is also a thing. Stolen bikes, broken windows, and mysteriously vanishing packages. Jobs are solid for trades and factory work, but if your career is outside that, pack for the commute. Life here is equal parts convenience and chaos. You get affordable homes, fast food everywhere, and neighbors who can jumpstart your car in under 30 seconds. But winter hits like a heavyweight. Potholes gnaw at your tires, and parking lots occasionally smell like antifreeze soaked in bad decisions. You save money on housing, but might spend extra on alignments, ring cameras, and maybe a snowblower with industrial-grade arms. Picture this: 7:30 a.m. at Tim Hortons. Snow whipping sideways, the guy behind you yelling about brake pads into a Bluetooth, and your coffee still somehow manages to stay hot. Streets aren't cleared, neighbors drive 2004 Impalas with battle scars, and the cold cuts through everything like a power tool.
Number 11. Toledo, Ohio. Toledo, Ohio. A place where you can grab a house for under $80,000, stroll past a nationally ranked zoo, and still stumble over a sidewalk that retired sometime in the 90s, right next to an abandoned Blockbuster. Known as the Glass City, Toledo is a patchwork of Midwestern grit, old industrial pride, and just enough charm to keep you interested. Median home price, $115,000. Rent for a two-bedroom, $750 to $850. Cost of living, about 22% below the national average. Perks include minor league hockey, neighbors who shovel snow and hand you a bowl of chili, and streets that feel like they were designed to test your suspension. Some neighborhoods are thriving, while others make it clear your car should stay warm while you grab the mail. Violent crime sits around twice the national average, and property crime keeps trash cans locked down like Fort Knox. The job market leans heavily on education, healthcare, and blue-collar work. Enough to keep a roof over your head, not enough to buy a yacht. One Redditor summed it up perfectly. Toledo's that middle child city. Cool if you treat it right, but it'll throw a brick through your window if you don't. Housing costs less than most people spend on gym memberships, but savings might vanish in pothole repairs, surprise basement floods, or installing a Ring doorbell for the local raccoon crew. Drivers treat yellow lights like polite suggestions. Sidewalks double as obstacle courses. Winter brings sideways snow, summer arrives with humidity so thick mosquitoes could chew it, and rain seems to coordinate perfectly with every parade. Step outside your $90,000 home and breathe in the scent of fresh dough from the Polish bakery. Hear a snowblower 3 blocks away, and watch as the city hums with its mix of calm, chaos, and unexpected charm. Toledo is stubborn, cheap, and full of surprises. Like your dad's old recliner if it came with free parking and a view of a glass factory. It's quirky, it's real, and somehow it works. Number 10. Goan, Washington. This is the kind of place you buy when you're tired of neighbors, traffic, and paying for literally anything. In Goan, you can snag a whole slice of ghost town real estate for less than the price of a rusty Subaru. And the kicker? It comes preloaded with a murder mystery or two. The town's population is 3 if you're counting pets, and the raccoons basically run the rental market. Houses, barns, lots, you name it, all listed under 10 grand, which makes it sound less like real estate and more like a yard sale with better acreage. The vibe here is straight out of a low-budget horror flick. The schoolhouse hasn't seen students since Prohibition, and at night, the loudest thing is your own heartbeat. Unless the wind decides to slam a door for dramatic effect. History's not on your side either. The local judge and his wife were axe-murdered in 1902, another family dropped dead in the 40s, and the school's collapsed steeple makes the place look like Hollywood's favorite Don't Go In There set. Living in Goan is basically like starring in your own true crime podcast, but without the producer to edit out your screams. On the upside, crime is technically zero because there's no police force, the cost of living is next to nothing,
And you could name yourself mayor, sheriff, and postmaster all before lunch. On the downside, when 2 a.m. rolls around and your only company is a derelict schoolhouse staring back at you with broken windows, you'll start to question life choices. Goan's cheap, isolated, and aggressively haunted. Perfect if you like silence, wind, and that special kind of quiet where you're never 100% sure you're alone.
Number 9. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In Pittsburgh, the average house costs less than a year at most private colleges, and the only debt you pick up comes from buying a new couch. Once the steel town with smokestacks as landmarks, it's now tech central, with Google, Uber, and even Duolingo setting up shop. Despite all that glow-up, the cost of living somehow never got the memo. Median home price hovers around $175,000. Rent for a two-bedroom averages $1,150, cheaper than a studio in a building that leans like it's auditioning for a tilt-a-whirl ride. Job market is booming in tech, healthcare, and robotics. Crime is block by block, a bit safe, a bit sketchy, like playing Minesweeper with your car. Pittsburgh's secret sauce? Sports teams that actually matter, parks that look like magazine covers, world-class universities, and somehow outsiders still think it's just a Rust Belt city. Weather has a personality disorder. Rain, fog, snow, and sun, often in the same afternoon. Hills so steep that GPS gives up and mutters, "Good luck." Local Redditors claim you haven't really lived until you've backed down a 45-degree icy driveway in reverse at 6 a.m. Driving here is its own sport. Blinkers are optional, vibes are mandatory, and potholes could swallow a Honda Civic whole. One local maneuvered past a traffic cone, slid through a snow pile, and ended up parked diagonally like it was abstract art. Picture a misty fall morning along the Allegheny River, grabbing coffee from a 100-year-old diner, crossing one of 400 bridges, and your worst problem is a cranky parking meter. Skyline looks like a postcard. Streets feel like Mario Kart Rust Belt edition. And yes, Pittsburgh has more bridges than Venice. And probably more potholes than the moon. Affordable charm with a side of chaos. And somehow, it works. Number 8. Platte City. Houses here dip under $150,000, which feels less like real estate and more like you accidentally unlocked a cheat code for Midwestern living. Platte City has the kind of name that belongs in a spaghetti western, but instead of tumbleweeds and revolvers, you'll find a neighbor in jean shorts pushing a mower like it's a competitive sport. Just north of Kansas City, the town runs on quiet streets, porch flags, and a healthy supply of backyard grills and lawnmowers, always more than anyone actually needs. Home prices sit between $130,000 and $160,000, depending on which side of Main Street you land. Cost of living hangs around 14% below the national average, and crime mostly shows up when porch pirates get bold. Work opportunities come by way of Kansas City, 25 minutes down the road. Close enough to commute, far enough to test your patience when traffic snarls. Life here feels like the official starter kit for suburban families. Schools, youth sports, parks, they've got it all. But nightlife is another story. The town's idea of going out is Sonic, Dairy Queen, or a Dollar General run that suddenly feels like a full-blown adventure. Roads are their own kind of thrill ride. One turn sends you airborne, the next drops you into a 15-mile-per-hour crawl behind Brenda's lifted truck. And construction? Always happening, even when nothing seems to be getting built. Platte City doesn't try to be something it's not. It's simple, affordable, and grounded in a small-town rhythm. Antique shops outnumber restaurants, Dairy Queen doubles as a community hub, and if you want Target, better pack snacks for the trip. For families chasing affordability and calm, it delivers. For everyone else, it's a strange but oddly endearing little pocket of Missouri.
Number 7. Waycross, Georgia.
In Waycross, a 3-bedroom house costs less than your latest iPhone storage upgrade, and it comes with a front porch ready for storytelling, sweet tea, or staring down the occasional raccoon. This sleepy southern town sits right on the edge of the Okefenokee Swamp. Pine trees everywhere, humidity thick enough to peel wallpaper, and Waffle House basically serving as City Hall. Median home price hovers around $85,000. Rent for a 2-bedroom is about $700, and the cost of living is roughly 25% below the national average. Jobs exist, mostly polite, not booming, and crime is moderate, unless you count armadillos and raccoons. Waycross's biggest employer is the railroad, and when the trains aren't blaring, the mosquitoes are auditioning for Attack of the Giant Bugs. Downtown looks like a low-budget zombie movie set, but with more Dollar Generals than extras. Still, the town's got charm. A brewery, a few solid barbecue spots, and every local calling you Hun before breakfast. It's a place where you can live like a king on a lawnmower budget, but convenience takes a back seat. This is front porch living. Crickets at night, and the occasional wild hog rummaging through your trash. Summer humidity wraps around you like a soggy blanket. Air conditioners scream instead of hum, and Georgia mosquitoes stare you down like tiny vampire bosses. Your house might come with acreage, a storm shelter, and Uncle B for free. Waycross isn't flashy. It isn't polished. But it's honest, cheap, and full of quirks. It's peaceful in that Southern Gothic sort of way. Perfect for anyone who wants a yard, a swing, and the occasional neighborly Hun while spotting wildlife from the porch. Number 6. Price. A small Utah town where a house costs about the same as a year of rent in Los Angeles, except here you actually get walls, a yard, and maybe even a garage. Median home price sits near $200,000. Cost of living runs about 18% below the national average, and unemployment is low enough that if you can handle a forklift or don't mind working around fossils, you're covered. Price rests between desert cliffs and old coal seams, carrying the kind of quiet that feels like it hasn't been disturbed since the Reagan years. Life here is slow but predictable. Internet service moves like dial-up on a rainy day, and nightlife ends the moment the gas station turns off its pizza oven. Dining options include a diner, 2 Subways, and a Taco Bell that sometimes shuts early if the cashier's niece has a recital. Their version of international food is putting sriracha on meatloaf. Still, there's a certain charm to it. Folks wave from porches, church bells mark the hours, and tumbleweeds take their sweet time crossing Main Street. Everyone knows your truck, your family, and whether you mow your lawn in straight lines or diagonals. Price might not serve up excitement, but it delivers something rare: stability. The sunsets paint the desert sky like a mural. Neighbors tip their hats from horseback, and peace and quiet are built into the cost of living. What you don't spend on overpriced rent or late-night sushi runs, you'll save for a backyard big enough to host a county fair. In San Francisco, $1 million gets you a shoebox with Wi-Fi. In price, it gets you a 4-bedroom with more space than you'll ever need, and a view that makes you forget what you're missing. Number 5. Memphis, Tennessee. In Memphis, houses go for less than a used Tesla, and none of them spontaneously combust in the rain. This is the city that gave the world rock and roll, ribs that ruined diets in record time, and real estate so cheap Zillow probably double-checked the math. Median home price hovers around $118,000. Cost of living sits about 17% below the national average. Rent under $1,000 for a 2-bedroom, assuming the landlord isn't trying to retire in Boca this year. Jobs exist in logistics, healthcare, and yes, at the FedEx headquarters. Not Silicon Valley, but you can actually make a living. Crime is high enough to make you think twice about leaving packages on the porch, but low enough that you still feel alive. Memphis has soul, literally and figuratively.
The music scene hits deep, the food hits harder, and some of the crime hits, well, somewhere in between. Affordable neighborhoods pack history, character, and neighbors who actually wave and chat instead of pretending they're invisible. Driving is an experience. Red lights are polite suggestions, turn signals are rumors, and donuts in Walmart parking lots get a friendly wave from the local cop. Humidity hugs you like a wet blanket, air conditioners wheeze like Elvis on stage, and your tires might not make it through the weekend. Step outside, smell the ribs, hear the blues drifting from Beale Street, and watch a neighbor back into a mailbox like it's part of the scenery.
Number 4. Atchison Village.
A two-bedroom in the Bay Area for under $300,000 sounds like a scam pulled from Craigslist, but this place is real. Built back in the 1940s for defense workers, it's now a co-op community that somehow dodged the California housing apocalypse. Median price sits around $250,000, with $400 HOA fees covering water, garbage, insurance, and a healthy dose of time travel. In a state where $300,000 usually buys you a parking spot, this feels like a cheat code. The catch? You don't exactly own your home. You buy into a cooperative, which means everyone technically owns it together. So those neighbors waving at you from across the street, they're also voting on whether your blinds are acceptable. It's affordable, sure, but the rules were written when FDR was still on the radio, and people here actually read them. Privacy is optional, lawn debates are mandatory. Still, the charm is undeniable. Tree-lined streets, old-school vibes, and a sense of community strong enough to make modern suburbs jealous. Step outside, Richmond can be a little dicey, but step back in, and it's like California pressed pause in 1950. If you're tired of rent that feels like extortion, Atchison Village is the glitch in the system. Just don't forget, you're not only buying a house, you're signing up for a lifetime subscription to neighborhood meetings.
Number 3. Yankton. A town where a house costs about the same as a used Subaru, and there's still room in the budget to keep that Subaru alive another year. Sitting on the Missouri River, Yankton feels like a postcard someone forgot to update since 1950. Steamboats, quiet downtown strolls, and neighbors who wave like it's part of city law. Median home prices hover around $220,000. The cost of living runs 16% below the national average, and crime is so low the local geese probably cause more trouble than people. Daily life is steady, small-town calm, with a few quirks baked in. Summers are sweet, winters hit like a steel door, and most young people eventually drift to Sioux Falls in search of coffee shops that stay open past 7. The job scene leans on healthcare, manufacturing, and the occasional side hustle born out of the VFW bar. It's the kind of place where half the town knows what you had for dinner before you even do, but the trade-off is safety, space, and a mortgage that won't age you 5 years overnight. Nightlife, if it can be called that, runs on gas station pizza, karaoke at the one bar in town, and neighbors turning every backyard into an unofficial block party. Picture mist rolling off the river in the morning, coffee steaming in your hand, and the only sound is a fisherman arguing with a pelican. Yankton runs slow, steady, and unbothered, like a town-sized exhale. It isn't trying to impress anyone. It just hands you peace and quiet. No questions asked. Number 2. Hermitage, Pennsylvania. In Hermitage, a full-sized house costs about the same as a used Subaru, with enough left over to grab a snowblower, 8 jugs of coffee, and maybe a lifetime supply of flannel. Hermitage sounds fancy, like a rustic getaway in the Alps, but, plot twist, it's smack in the snow belt of western Pennsylvania, where the air is crisp, the vibes are slow, and the world can spin all at once while locals sip coffee on front porches. Median home price is just under $90,000. The cost of living is about 20% below the national average. Jobs are mostly in healthcare, education, and manufacturing. Crime is so low that a wandering raccoon might make the evening paper. Life here is slow, safe, and just weird enough to keep things entertaining. Hermitage is basically your grandma's attic. Quiet, charming,
and filled with things that haven't moved since 1994. Trendy cafes? Forget it. Wi-Fi might pause to contemplate existence before loading your memes. Snow here isn't casual. It's an Olympic event. Your mortgage is laughably small, but neighbors are everywhere, ready to chat while uninvitedly snowblowing your driveway. Traffic lights last a full Netflix intro. One mall exists, but feels haunted. And after 9 p.m., the town basically folds into a lawn chair. Number 1. Beula, Pennsylvania. This is where cheap land and mildly cursed hold hands and skip through the woods. Once planned as a Welsh utopia in the 1800s, the place fizzled out and got eaten alive by trees and time. Now it exists as a crumbling foundation, an overgrown cemetery, and a pile of ghost stories that sound suspiciously like rejected X-Files scripts. It's not really a town anymore, more like a setting you stumble across in a horror video game when you're low on ammo. Land prices here are ridiculous. Some plots have gone for under $500. Basically the cost of 2 tires and a gas station burrito. No restrictions, no city planning, no zoning headaches. Build a cabin, park an RV, or just throw down a folding chair and call it your kingdom. Crime rate is effectively 0, unless you count spectral activity and whatever the bugs are plotting. Rent doesn't exist. The houses are long gone, and the only neighbors are mossy headstones and the occasional glowing orb. Job opportunities? Unless you're running an Etsy shop for ghost hunters, you'll be relying on remote work. The real challenge here is nature. Moths the size of pancakes dive-bombing porch lights, mosquitoes organized like a biker gang, and spiders that act like landlords who never left. Still, it's peaceful in its own way. Picture a fall evening. Fog creeping through the grass, leaves crunching underfoot, and a faint glow hovering over a broken gravestone. It's quiet, eerie, a little cursed, but the land is dirt cheap, and the ghosts don't charge HOA fees. So, which of these cities surprised you the most? Would you take a chance on a $25,000 house in a struggling town? Or do you think the trade-offs are too steep? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it eye-opening.
Because in a country where housing costs dominate headlines, it's worth remembering, not all homes come with million-dollar price tags. Sometimes they come with stories.